Everyone dreams of traveling in retirement. It's a top goal for most. But here's the problem. A lot of people jump into things like timeshares, vacation homes, before they even crunch and run those numbers. And what happens is they get stuck with rising costs, less flexibility, and no legacy for their family when they intended to do so. So today I want to give you one simple values test and four quick math checks so you can figure out whether a timeshare, a vacation home, or travel destination, or even dual residency actually fits your retirement lifestyle. And by the end, you're going to know which one lines up with your values and which ones you want to kick to the curb. Hi, I'm Scott Grosskreutz. I'm president of SG Financial and Amazon best-selling author. I've also helped hundreds of retirees build plans, not just portfolios, and travel is almost always one of those top goals people that generally have. And I've seen clients win by aligning their values with smart travel structure and design. And I've also seen plenty get stuck with things like buyer's remorse from paying for options that they don't even use, things that they aren't willing to maintain, and they get stuck. The trap is this: we buy the story before we check the numbers or even check our own values. Timeshares sound convenient. Vacation homes sound like a family legacy. Dual residency promises comfort, relaxation. Bucket list travel feels like freedom and exploration. But if the cost and lifestyle don't match, you may be stuck with a version of your retirement travel that you don't even want to carry out, and you may not be able to undo it. I was recently in Hawaii with my family. We were sitting along the beach in this beautiful bay area, and this wonderful couple walked by and they said, "Excuse me, do you like this area?" And I told them, "Yeah, we come here pretty consistently over the years." And we had a nice conversation. She was carrying a bunch of papers and a binder, and she said that she had just left a timeshare presentation and that she thought that the timeshare was a good idea because the money she said she would save in hotel stays from getting the timeshare just makes it a perfect deal for her and her husband. And I encouraged her to do the math. And so I grabbed a piece of paper where I was sitting, and we together, the three of us, did the math right there on the beach. And once we did the math, she realized that to take face value of maybe what a timeshare salesperson said was probably not the best thing. That if the reason for her doing the timeshare, the sole reason was just because it was a good deal, then maybe that's not the decision she should make. And so they were left thinking about what they should do, and they had more education, more knowledge behind that decision. And I hope they find their best route to experience the travel on their own terms in the future. So, what I'd like to do now is do a little bit of an exercise, somewhat of what we did there on the beach with that wonderful couple in Hawaii. Of course, the dollars and cents is really important to really do the math to make sure it makes math sense for your retirement picture. But before we do that, I'd like to do an exercise which focuses on what we value. Because if it's not in line with what our values, then the math doesn't even matter, other than it just being a good deal. So let's do this together. Grab on your iPhone, open up the Notes app. What I'm going to do is go through a list of exercises that you'll do together with me, and you'll circle which value is a priority for you. Now, you may circle a few, and that's fine, but circle the main ones that really speak to you and ignore the other ones. So we're going to do this together. Circle consistency if it makes sense for you, family legacy, adventure and learning, comfort and routine, flexibility and choice, low hassle. Now, I mention all these things and they're right here on the screen. So, which one of these values here speaks the most in terms of your values and your spouse's? What's most important to you? When you think about your travel, does it feel like you don't want to decide on something now because you like that optionality? So maybe that convenience and that flexibility is really important to you. If you hate traveling in terms of the planning and you hate all that pre-work that goes into it, maybe something more consistency is really what you value more. So, depending on where you're at, it's important to determine what your values are first and foremost. That's going to really point you in the kind of travel style that really makes the most sense for you. Then we'll run the quick math check to make sure that the numbers all play out for you. Timeshare, the consistent traveler. If consistency is your top value, the timeshare may look like the easy choice for you. But here's the math that you just don't want to skip. Take your annual fees and divide that by the actual nights that you'll use that timeshare. If you're paying $1,800 a year and you really only use it 6 nights a year, that's $300 a night. If your hotel stay is 250, then you're already losing in terms of that math. So the important part that actually most people leave out is the actual cost of the timeshare itself. So let's say you paid $25,000 for that timeshare. Divide that by the cost of the number of years you realistically think that you'll use it. If that's, let's say, 10 years, easy math, that's another $2,500 a year that you add to the cost of ownership. And remember, don't forget those fees. Suddenly, the true cost per night is way higher than you would be paying for renting or a hotel stay. And here's the kicker. Unlike a vacation home, there's no equity. Timeshares almost never resell for anything meaningful. Your heirs really don't inherit an asset. They inherit an obligation to pay things like annual maintenance fees. The next is vacation home, the family and legacy hub. If family and legacy are at the top of your list, a vacation home might be a dream for you. This is a place where kids, your grandchildren can gather together every year, year after year. Here's the math check. Out of the mortgage, the property taxes, insurance, HOA, fees, utilities, set aside about 1.5% for the home's value for repairs. And then you subtract the realistic rental income after management fees and vacancies. So you want to take that number and then divide it by the number of nights that you'll personally use that location. And if the cost per night is close or lower than renting, and you'll use that 45 nights or more each year, then it might make sense for you overall. But just remember, vacation properties are often the first to lose value during economic downturns in real estate. And when you're thinking about legacy, you really need to write it into your estate plan. Make sure you write in who inherits it, who maintains it, and how heirs each buy each other out. Otherwise, the family fights and you're trying to avoid those issues from showing up later on. The next option is destination travel. This is the adventurous explorer. Maybe you're the type who really values things like scrapbooking your bucket list items and you love the planning aspect of travel. Maybe you want to visit the Great Wall of China, the Seven Wonders of the World, whatever it is, a European river cruise. You want to see the Northern Lights. You want those experiences more than maybe what you would want in ownership and legacy. And here's the math check. One $10,000 trip every 2 years averages out to about $5,000 a year, right? So you add in, let's say, 3 or 4% for inflation. If that number is about 5 to 8% of your annual retirement income, and you have that wiggle room in your budget, it usually fits without really straining your plan or even legacy. There's no equity or no asset here. So just remember, you'll gain those memories, that flexibility in return, and obviously less hassle if you don't mind the planning aspect each year. But then again, you can always hire a travel agent. The other option is dual residency. That's the comfort seeker. If you value comfort and routine, dual residency might be on your mind. You have summers in one place and winters in another. The math check is really straightforward. You add up all the costs of that second property, the taxes, you add up the insurance, you add up the HOA fees, utilities, the upkeep, and the cost of traveling back and forth. Don't forget that. Subtract what you'd save by not taking longer destination trips, and then you compare that net cost to just renting a place seasonally. If owning is within 10 to 15% of renting and you'll live there 3 months or more each year, it really will make sense to you. But you also need to think ahead. At 75, will these two homes feel like freedom or more like a burden? You have to account for things like having extra sets of clothes, your cars, especially if these properties are out of state. For out of state properties, these can be a particular hassle for some of my clients, especially when maintenance issues start piling up in a house and you're getting older and that house is sitting empty for more than half the year. I've seen a lot of families eventually decide to sell those second homes as they age in retirement. And if you do own one, make sure that the title is updated to your trust so it transfers smoothly, avoids probate to your heirs later. Of course, this is relying upon which state you live in. Now, here's the payoff. When you match your values with a travel option that also passes the math checks and the values tests, you really gain that confidence. You know whether it's worth owning or renting or just doing a vacation strategy with organizing each year. Timeshares rarely hold up. Vacation homes can really build family and legacy and memories if that's your top priority and if you'll use them enough. Destination travel really buys that freedom, right? So, dual residency, of course, that brings comfort and consistency, but only if the costs and responsibilities really make sense for you long term. And if you'd like help running these numbers inside of your own retirement plan, that's what we do at SG Financial. We recommend having an income plan within your retirement plan. Your future is too important to wing it. Visit sgretire.com and discover how you can build a fulfilling retirement.